Pluto. It's one of those rare places that seems to capture people's imagination, unlike almost anywhere else in the solar system. Despite its tiny size and incredible distance from Earth, there's something about it that has made generations of people care about this frozen world. For me though, the most remarkable story isn't about when we first saw Pluto up close, as incredible as that moment was. It's about the man who found it, and then went on to visit it. Born February 4th, 1906, Clyde Tombaugh grew up in the small town of Streator, Illinois. When he was 16, his family moved to a farm near Burdett, Kansas, hoping to build a better life. It's an unlikely place for one of history's greatest astronomical discoveries to begin, but it was there that Tombaugh became fascinated by the night sky. His family encouraged that curiosity, but according to those who knew him best, everything changed the first time he looked through his uncle's telescope. From that moment on, exploring the night sky wasn't simply an interest, it had become his passion. Rather than buying a telescope, however, Tombaugh decided to build his own. At just 20 years old, he taught himself how to grind mirrors by hand and construct telescopes using little more than spare parts from his family farm. Over the course of his life, he would build more than 30 of them. And I think that's one of the things I admire most about Clyde Tombaugh. It seems like he never waited for the perfect opportunity or the perfect equipment. He simply worked with what he had. In 1928, using one of his homemade telescopes, Tombaugh produced remarkably detailed drawings of Mars and Jupiter and sent them to the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona, hoping for little more than some honest feedback. Instead, his drawings impressed the observatory's director so much that Tombaugh was offered a job as the observatory assistant, allowing Tombaugh to operate the new photographic telescope in search of, among other things, the mysterious Planet X. Long before Clyde Tombaugh ever began searching the skies, astronomers believed the solar system was still hiding another world. Throughout much of the 19th century, Uranus was thought to be the outermost planet in the solar system. But as astronomers carefully tracked its orbit, they noticed something strange. It didn't appear to be moving exactly as expected. They concluded that the gravity of an unseen planet must be pulling on it from even farther out. That prediction led to one of astronomy's greatest triumphs. In 1846, Neptune was mathematically predicted before it was ever seen through a telescope. But the story didn't end there. Even after Neptune's discovery, astronomers believed there were still subtle irregularities in the motions of the outer planets. Whether those irregularities were real or simply the result of incomplete observations wasn't yet understood. But to many astronomers at the time, they hinted that another distant world might still be waiting to be found. When Clyde Tombaugh joined the search for Planet X in 1929, his task sounded deceptively simple. Photograph the same region of the night sky on different nights, then compare the images, searching for anything that had moved. To do that, Tombaugh used a remarkable machine called a blink comparator, rapidly switching between two photographic plates. The distant stars remained fixed, but anything much closer, such as a planet orbiting the Sun, would appear to jump back and forth against the background. The challenge was spotting it. Every photographic plate contained thousands of tiny points of light. One by one though, Tombaugh examined them all. A single pair of images could take days to search. Can you imagine the patience it takes to complete this process? But then, after 10 months of searching, he finally saw something. A tiny point of light moving silently across the stars. A previously unknown world hiding beyond Neptune. These are the original photographic plates from January 23rd and January 29th, 1930. That tiny object shifting between them is Clyde Tombaugh's discovery. At the time, astronomers believed this was the long sought-after Planet X and the 9th planet of the solar system. Of course, it needed an official name. And so the Lowell Observatory invited suggestions from around the world. The winning idea came from an 11-year-old schoolgirl in Oxford, England, named Venetia Burney, who, inspired by the Roman god of the underworld, suggested the name Pluto. For me, it's one of those wonderful little details that makes this story even more memorable. A frozen world at the edge of the solar system, named by a child. It didn't take long for astronomers to realise that Pluto was far too small to be the mysterious Planet X they had been searching for, and so the hunt for another distant world soon continued. But Pluto would remain the solar system's 9th planet for more than 70 years. Before being controversially reclassified as a dwarf planet by the International Astronomical Union in 2006, following the discovery of several other Pluto-sized worlds beyond Neptune. Clyde Tombaugh had gone from a farmer's son with a homemade telescope to one of the most celebrated astronomers of his generation. Before his death on January 17, 1997, he not only discovered Pluto, but also hundreds of asteroids, countless star clusters, and even a comet. But for me, what happened next is what transforms this from a remarkable scientific achievement into one of the most beautiful and poetic stories in the history of space exploration. Because although Tombaugh's life had come to an end here on Earth, his journey was only really just beginning. Just 9 years after Tombaugh's passing, NASA launched one of the most ambitious planetary missions ever attempted, New Horizons. A spacecraft designed to visit Pluto for the first time. We all know what it saw in July 2015 as it passed by, the frozen heart that was named Tombaugh Regio, the towering water ice mountains, the vast glaciers, and the beautiful thin blue atmosphere. But you might be surprised to know that although Tombaugh never got to see those images, part of him was there as New Horizons visited Pluto. Mounted inside the spacecraft was a small capsule carrying a portion of Clyde Tombaugh's ashes. For me, that's one of the most touching tributes in the history of space exploration. It meant that, in a way, Clyde Tombaugh did get to see the world he had discovered. Inscribed on the capsule were these words: "Interred herein are remains of American Clyde W. Tombaugh, discoverer of Pluto and the solar system's third zone, Adele and Myron's boy, Patricia's husband, Annette and Alden's father, astronomer, teacher, punster, and friend. Clyde W. Tombaugh, 1906 to 1997. But Clyde Tombaugh's journey didn't end at Pluto. After its historic flyby in 2015, New Horizons continued deeper into the Kuiper Belt. Today, more than 90 years after Clyde first discovered Pluto, and decades after his death, that tiny capsule carrying part of his ashes is still travelling through space. Still pushing farther into the unknown than any piece of human being ever has. I think that's a rather fitting ending. A young boy whose passion for the night sky began on a small farm in Kansas is still exploring the edge of the solar system to this very day. This channel is researched, written and narrated by me, a real human who actually checks sources and cares about the stories behind each video. That's why I created the V101 Alliance, a membership offer that, for less than the price of a coffee each month, allows people who values this kind of content the chance to support it directly, and in return get meaningful perks. So if you'd like to join this mission and become a part of the V101 Alliance, become a member today for just $2 by clicking the join button that's located next to the subscribe button. I'd love to welcome you, and hopefully I'll be seeing your name in one of my future videos very soon.